Hey everyone, today we are looking at market failure and in particular externalities. And in particular, negative externalities. Firstly, we'll look at what an externality is. So they're the positive or harmful effects on a third party when a good or service is consumed or produced. So there's a lot going on there. Essentially, how the consumption or production of something affects other people, external to the transaction, right? I decide to consume something, I affect people who didn't decide to do it, right? I affect other people, third parties, we might say. So let's look at an example. Here's me. I'm having a smoke. So let's say I just light up in the classroom. Now, there are what we call private costs. That to me, so I get what smokers get. I get a loss of taste, I get smelly clothes, I get likely an earlier death. But there are also what we call externalities, so the harmful effects on third parties that arise when a good or service is consumed. So what are those harmful effects on third parties? We call them external costs. So the litter, I'm throwing away my cigarette butts in the street, little fish are dying. When it gets to the ocean, I smell. People don't like the smell. Secondhand smoke, people who don't choose to smoke can still get the lung diseases, the cancer, etc. Just because I'm smoking near them. And the big one here, public health care dollars. What smokers tend to do, if they've been smoking a long time, if they get cancer, what they do is they do die, they get that earlier death. But what happens is it's a slow, expensive death. So cancer treatment is very expensive in a country like Australia where the government pays for a lot of your treatment. That cost falls on the taxpayer, who is essentially everyone else in the country. They have to pay for my decision to smoke. And I'll just say, I'm not a smoker. I've never smoked. I've had like 2 cigarettes in my life. No thanks. Just so I'm not promoting anything here, right? Okay, demand and supply. So we've seen this, demand, supply. What's new with this diagram is we can show not just price, but also cost and benefit on the y-axis. And we've got supply equaling marginal cost and demand equaling marginal benefit. Okay, if you're in year 11, that won't make a ton of sense to you yet. We'll go through that in class. And we get a bit more specific with the labels. The labels get a bit tricky in this diagram. So here we've got supply equals our marginal private costs. So they're the costs to me when I do something. And demand, they're the benefits that I get when I do something. The marginal private benefit, the benefits I get from doing one more, the cost I incur from doing one more. So this is what a market with no externalities looks like. The private costs to me or to the firm are the exact same as the cost to society. The benefits to the individual are the exact same as the benefits to society because there are no external costs, no external benefits. Okay, so stay with me here. There's a lot going on. This is what a diagram of a negative consumption externality looks like. So I've got my demand curve here. So demand equals marginal private benefit. This is the benefit I get from smoking. Society gets much less benefit from me smoking one more cigarette. Their benefit is only here. They get benefit because I am part of society, so they get some benefit in that way. But generally, they get little benefit from this. So the difference between these two curves are the external costs. So here, the smoker benefits more than society. So that's why there are external costs here. Benefits to the private individual, benefits to society are less. Okay, now what we can see is that this is not an allocatively efficient outcome because I'm consuming here where marginal private costs equal my marginal private benefits. I'm getting my maximum benefit here. So this is where I'm operating in a free market, Q free, right? That's how much smoking gets done in a free market. But here, what we can see is the marginal social cost is greater than the marginal social benefit. Marginal social benefit is here, way down here. Social cost is higher. So from society's point of view, we're smoking too many cigarettes, right? The optimum from society's point of view would be where their social costs, marginal social costs, equal marginal social benefits, which is here. So this is what we call our optimum level of consumption. So Q opt. Right, so we'll leave that there. So what this means is that this triangle here, where represents the overconsumption of cigarettes, is a welfare loss. It's allocatively inefficient. We as a society are putting too many resources into smoking cigarettes, producing cigarettes, consuming cigarettes. So again, not a smoker, just so we're clear. Okay, here we're looking at a negative production externality. So this is when the negative effects on third parties arise when a good or service is produced. So cigarettes represent a consumption externality because the negative effects only happen when they're smoked, when they're consumed. Here, we could be producing anything here. The negative effects come from the pollution that comes from production, right? So the cost to society of every additional unit of production are higher than the cost to the firm, right? Yeah, cost to society are more than the cost to producer, okay? Again, we have allocative inefficiency. Cost to society greater than the benefit to society when we're operating at this free market equilibrium, right? That's no good. That's a welfare loss again. There is an overproduction of this good. Let's say they're producing aluminium, right? That's my example. That's an aluminium smelter. They're producing aluminium. It's huge. It's hugely energy intensive. So it's a lot of pollution for that production. So we're overproducing it, and that's the welfare loss. It shows that we're allocatively inefficient here. Okay, explaining an externality. These are kind of difficult. So how do we explain an externality? I'll give you a little mnemonic device. It's not a real word, so it makes it a bit hard. But we'll start with E, external cost. So we want to describe what the external cost in the market is. I'll show an example straight after I do this. The C, is it about consumption or production, right? We want to use the right terminology here, right? So it also determines how we draw the diagram. So we'll see that. We need to refer to the optimal quantity, right? So the optimal quantity is where marginal social cost equals marginal social benefit. We want to refer to the free market quantity. So where is it actually being consumed or produced? And that's where MPC equals MPB. Marginal private cost equals marginal private benefit. The A, allocation of resources. So you want to refer to the misallocation of resources. So show that there's an over-allocation of resources in these cases. And therefore the W, welfare loss. So refer to the welfare loss as the shaded area on the diagram. All right, what does that look like? Yeah, we use smoking. So Eco 4, right? It's pretty catchy. So the externality, the illness from cigarette smoke puts strain on the taxpayer-funded health system. That's the external cost, right? This comes from consuming cigarettes. And then we're referring to, this means marginal social benefits are less than marginal private benefits. Society would want more cigarettes consumed where MSB equals MSC at Q opt. So that's our optimal quantity, and we're comparing that to where our free market is operating, right? So over allocation of resources to cigarettes as Q3 is greater than Q opt, right? We're putting too many resources into cigarettes. It's not what society wants. The misallocation of resources represented by the shaded area of welfare loss. All right, so make sure you have this down. It's crucial. Next to the diagram, we will work through these in class. Now, there's still more. Okay, what are the government responses? If there's an over allocation, what the government has to do is try to fix that, try to lessen or remove that over allocation of resources. So what can they do to make people produce or consume less? So we can shift demand left. So for example, we can apply these to, say, cigarettes, right? Information campaigns. Let people know it's hurting you. It's hurting others. Negative advertising, we see that. Stop smoking. Legislation and regulation. Think about like legislation, how old you have to be to consume cigarettes. You know, compared to a free market, that should reduce the amount of cigarettes that are smoked. And regulation, these are rules. Think of the rules about where you're able to smoke, right? That has reduced greatly in the last 20 years. So they're essentially restrictions on consumers here, what consumers stop doing. They're the things that are going to shift demand left, or the MPB curve to the left. All right, and so that's what it could look like. And then you could have a reduced welfare loss, right? And that's partly solved. That's great. The government has intervened to help fix the market failure. All right, so let's get rid of that. Another option is to shift the supply curve left, right? Indirect taxes. So again, think of the taxes we've got on cigarettes. You want people to do less of something, you put a tax on it. And legislation and regulation, again, now these are restrictions on producers. So for example, with the aluminium, you might have restrictions on the number of tons of carbon emissions that you're allowed to pour out into the atmosphere. So you can use legislation, and that's going to shift the supply curve back. They can't supply as much as they could before. Okay, so here we go. That's what that looks like. Supply curve shifts to the left. We get that new equilibrium, MPC and MPB. So again, we get a reduced welfare loss. Right, so the government intervention has occurred there to help fix the market failure. All right, a lot to take in there, so we'll be doing plenty of practice in class. Okay, thank you.